Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. As always, the show is brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com. Thank you to those of you who have already subscribed to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe. And for everybody, let's make today Fuel the Algorithm Day. Leave a comment, like the video, share the video, all of the things that impress the overlords at YouTube who determine what is cool and what is not. That's what we need today. Let's really focus on it. Fuel the algorithm. Look, you don't have to do that. If you don't want to do any of those things, I get it. But I would appreciate it if you did. Thank you so much for your support. Today, we're talking recruiting. Why recruiting again? Well, BYU picked up a commitment from Granger High School's Carson Su'esu'e yesterday, and we need to talk about it. But before we talk about Carson Su'esu'e, the first question that I got asked by about 100 people yesterday, Jeff, what does this mean for Maealiuaki Smith? The answer? Nothing. Nothing at all. Carson Su'esu'e will go on a mission after high school. So depending on when he leaves, he could technically be part of the 2026 recruiting class or even the 2027 recruiting class, depending on when he leaves and when he comes back. Maealiuaki Smith, of course, would join the program in 2024. So even though they're graduating high school at the same time, even though they would both sign and would both be announced as part of the class of 2024, they effectively aren't. Carson Su'esu'e will go on a mission first, so it really doesn't overlap. The fact that they're both playing the quarterback position really doesn't mean anything for one or the other. These are two different kids from two different classes. That's how you have to look at it, and that's how BYU looks at it. So then the next question that I would get, well, what does this mean for Enoch Watson? Watson is a quarterback who will also go on a mission out of Queen Creek, Arizona, who has committed to BYU as well. First, I think BYU would take two quarterbacks, and clearly they are, right, with Su'esu'e and Watson. But as we talk about Su'esu'e, I think we'll answer the question about Watson. So Su'esu'e, first and foremost, 6'5". He's a little slender build right now, but he's got a big frame. I bet you he gets to 210, 220 without a whole lot of work. I mean, he's got a big frame and that big body to grow into. He's got good genetics. He could get there without any real work or trepidation. And because of that, and because he's such a good athlete, I don't know that he's going to play quarterback at BYU. I think he'll be given a chance to play quarterback at BYU, but I think at his size, he could potentially be a tight end. I think he could potentially be a wide receiver, kind of in the mold of a Neil Pau'u, who also played quarterback when he was in high school. I think Carson Su'esu'e is going to have a lot of defensive coaches, particularly Justin Enna, who want him to come and play linebacker. Jay Hill, Justin Enna, Kelly Papinga, they love size and they love speed. They love those big, long linebackers, and that's what Carson Su'esu'e could be. So I think the defensive coaches are going to make a strong push to say, hey, no, you've got your quarterback. We want Su'esu'e on our side of the ball. And from Kalani's perspective, I think Carson could play all of those things. He really is a very good athlete. He is a pretty good quarterback as well. I think he could stick at that position. I think he could play wide receiver. And I think he'd be a heck of a defensive player on the other side of the ball. Carson Su'esu'e can do it all. So don't view him as a quarterback that will only play quarterback. He's going to get a chance to play quarterback, but BYU just got a commitment from an athlete. And this athlete could play one of 5 or 6 different positions, depending on how he develops physically, depending on who is on the coaching staff in 2026 and 2027. Carson Su'esu'e could go a lot of different directions. So what does this mean for Enoch Watson? Well, Watson's a quarterback. Watson's also a pretty special athlete in his own right and could do a lot of things, but he's being brought in to play quarterback. Carson Su'esu'e is being brought in as an athlete, and they will figure out what to do with him later on. And that sounds like, well, we don't know what to do with him. But why would you bring a commitment in from a guy that you don't know what to do with? It's very similar to, I always use this example, Bronco when he brought in Aleva Hifo. Aleva Hifo, he was a little undersized. Is he a receiver? Is he a running back? Is he a cornerback? Nobody knew, but the defensive staff at that time, and really I guess it boiled up to Bronco at that time, said, look, guys, he's a football player. We're bringing him in to play football. We'll figure out where, but he's a football player, and we want football players on our team. That's kind of the mantra that you should have with Carson Su'esu'e. He's a very good football player, and he can be a very good football player at a variety of different spots. Bring him in, find out where he fits best later on. That's the plan. So where do things go for BYU from here? They now have 8 commitments as part of this 2024 recruiting class. About half of those guys will go on missions first. Where does BYU go? And I think the 8 players who are currently committed are the foundation of the class. And from here, I think BYU swings big. They don't have to get any specific positions out of high school right now. I think that they feel pretty good. Even the quarterback spot, I would love for BYU to get Maealiuaki Smith, and so would BYU. But I don't know that it's a given that BYU will immediately offer Roman Gagliano or some other 2024 quarterback if Smith goes to Oklahoma State or somewhere else. I think BYU is going to be a little bit more picky going into the Big 12. They may offer Roman Gagliano right away. They absolutely could, and I think he's a very good player. I would personally be very happy if Gagliano was in the BYU program, but I don't know that BYU will immediately jump to that conclusion. I think they'll be picky. They'll see how he develops. They'll look at some senior tape for Gagliano before they make a decision. And I think that that's going to be the case at every position because of the transfer portal, because of junior college players, because of guys coming home off of missions. I think that BYU has the scholarship capital to be a little bit more picky than they would have been in the past. And I think you're going to see that play out. So typically in June, July, BYU has 15 commitments. Right now they have 8. That doesn't mean that recruiting is slow. That doesn't mean that they're not doing a good job. That means that they're being really picky and they're swinging big. I'm looking at guys like Cash Dillon and Davis Andrews and Falitau Satuala and Ephraim Asiata. I mean, there's some big names that BYU is going after. They're still trying to get Roger Saleapaga, Nuku Mafi. They're still swinging big, and I would expect them to swing big from now until the end of the season when some of these kids have made decisions and BYU has a clear path of what they need to do going forward. Big deal. Congratulations to Carson Su'esu'e on his commitment, and thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today on Fuel the Algorithm Day. Till next time, give 'em hell.